Bye.
Michael, can you see us?
I cannot. Where are you? I can hear you. It's really creepy, but
try maybe gallery or a different.
Wait, there we go. Watch this.
All right.
Boom.
Michael Rowland with lower caps. I mean, come on. Let's be a little more sophisticated than that.
Does it say all caps? It's lower caps on mine. Oh, I see. I see your point, son. Hi, Devin. How are you?
I have 2 young boys at home, so I'm actually muting myself in case they act up.
Michael, you should mute yourself.
Okay, hold on.
I feel you, Devin.
Meow, meow.
Hi, Richie.
Beep, beep. Meow, meow. Beep, beep. Can you guys hear?
A lot of punctual people. Wow.
We can hear.
I can hear
meow,
you.
meow, beep, beep.
What is a car hitting
I can't
a
see
cat?
anybody. Let's see.
Hello.
My hands are humongous.
Oh, there we go. Oh my God, John. There he is. Oh my God, I love it.
Cheers.
Hello, my friend.
Hey, John.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
Good.
Surviving one day at a time.
Yeah.
That's right.
More than that, I'm not sure I can actually afford to these days because it's fairly crazy. Fairly amazing, just like for all of us. But we'll get through that one. You know, one day we'll be able to manage it and to hopefully laugh about it for many of us. Because I think it's going to turn out to be a fairly interesting time for kids. I think kids overall are going to actually remember it really well because they're going to be able to remember a lot of time spent with parents and even though they drive us crazy, I think it's going to be fairly positive with them, which is kind of cool. I think that overall they'll have a good memory of that. Hopefully, what do you guys think?
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly right. Because you are the kid, Richie. That's the difference.
No way. Gentle.
Well, 5:30 it is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Swiss. I was born with the time in my blood, so I will start right away. I will make sure that everything is well. I will make sure also to mute Richie because we don't want to hear because he's fairly annoying.
Oh, Richie disappeared from the screen.
I think it's.
Or maybe it's us. I don't know.
No, here.
Oh, there you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us on my wonderful daily excuse to drink wine. I think that's what it really is about. Today, obviously, we're going to talk about AXR. We have a lot of our wonderful friends, wonderful partners, clients, cousins. I see Kelly on there. I see Mark. I see Mike Butella. There's a lot of people. But, you know, the first thing I need to tell you guys, for those of you who know Sonia, Sonia is a wonderful addition to our team. I've known her for a really, really, really long time through Alpha Omega, through AXR, through a lot of different moments, different venture, different things. And the first time I actually met her, she was actually a tasting room associate, and we went on a vineyard tour, and she asked so many smart questions, so many questions right on the point that after the vineyard tour, I says, would you be very interested in working on the production side, instead of the tasting room? And she's like, of course. So actually she came and worked with me on the production side for a long time, because she was so smart about how she analyzed, understood, and saw really winemaking, viticulture, that it was pretty brilliant. And today is her birthday. So Sonia, I'm sure at the end we'll sing you something and we'll cheer to you. But I just wanted to open that statement saying happy birthday, my dear. I hope that you can still celebrate. I hope you're drinking a lot. I hope that you're having a lot of fun. And thank you for everything you do for us, for you, for AXR, for the world, really. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Sonia.
Happy birthday.
Kelly is opening the bottle only
Feliz cumpleaños.
late. Kelly is never on time for anything. I don't think he was on time for his own birth, but that's a different story. So now we're going to talk about the different wines and different things about AXR that I want to cover today. You guys know, and next week we'll actually be hosting that same tasting from the winery directly, and we'll be able to show you how the winery, despite no staff, no people, no visitors, no partners, no cousins, is doing, because it's kind of fun, and we'll be tasting from the veranda directly, since it's been one of the posted and published truth of the winery in our cyber tasting, virtual tastings, whatever you want to call them. We'll have fun doing that for sure next week, but until then, we have 3 wines to taste and to go through with plenty of enough people. So I'm going to ask that we're going to change a little bit the format of this session. I'm going to ask that anybody chimes in at any given point. Just unmute yourself, discuss, have a comment, questions. It's an open dialogue, and it's really, really important to do so. Yes, Kelly?
I just want to say thank you for all the support that all of our wine club members and guests have given us during this time. It's been humbling, and we feel so blessed to have all of you behind us as we get through this time. And we can't wait to show you our new wine club lounge barn project that we put together. And we look forward to having everybody together as we get through this. So thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. I have actually the master button. I can mute Kelly at any given point. If we think anybody thinks here he talks too much, which he does, we'll just mute it, and I can actually cut his video as well if you need to. So he's kind of powerless, which is good, because he's probably the most annoying of all our friends, but we love him anyways. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, well, that new space is going to be. That new space is going to be really, really interesting, really good, a different feel. It's really a part of the winery that I enjoy, because it's the vibe of the winery for me is even greater within these woods, within the fairy circle, and to be close to that kind of boundary between nature and the barn is going to be really, really special and really, really cool. I want to start talking a little bit about AXR's wine and the wines that we're going to taste. The first wine we're going to taste is actually AXR, the proprietary. It's actually a blend of multiple varietals from multiple places that kind of represents a real tribute to Napa. Napa is honestly probably the easiest place on earth to make wine. We are so blessed to have, in such a small environment, so much diversity of soil, so much diversity of geological formation, so much diversity in microclimates, that you can really source fruit from so many different places. And it helps me, in this case, the winemaker, to be really proactive, not reactive, because the consistency of climate is absolutely amazing. But like every situation, every person there's a fault to Napa. Nothing and nobody is perfect. And in the case of Napa, the biggest fault is always heat for me. It's always the factor that can temper, ruin, modify, sometimes hurt the integrity of the wines and the integrity of certain varietals in any given year. It's not so much the rain, because it's fairly rare. Even in 2011, you know, we were able to ripen dramatically the fruit. We picked things at 27.5 bricks, so it's a potential of, you know, in 2011, 27.5 was about 16.5 if you only had that wine. We blended it with other things, that particular lots, but all these really, what is named for most sometimes colder vintage are actually, compared to Europe, not cold at all. They're just normal vintages in Europe. And as you might know by now, I was born and raised in Switzerland, a fairly cold climate, where I learned to make Chasselas, Gamay, and Pinot. When you prune in Switzerland, you prune with your knees in the snow. You know, it's not like, oh, let's go prune in Napa Valley. It's 80 degrees. Hello, let's have some sunshine. No. It's a blizzard. It's a pain in the ass. Excuse my French. It's tough. You have to wear gloves. Your hand hurts. Your knee hurts. You're wet. It's disgusting. It's really no fun. But we still do it out of love and passion of wine. And somebody really asked me actually today, that was running an interview on me, and they said, what did you learn the most in South Africa? Because I worked in South Africa, and the thing that I learned the most when I was down there, because it was 1998, the end of the apartheid, and I think the thing that I learned the most when I was down there is the use and importance in wine to recognize and understand that it is always a group effort. It is never about one individual. It's about all the people around it. Meaning what? When I was in South Africa and I was telling the workers that were Black people from South Africa, hey guys, why don't you come work in Switzerland when I go back? You know, you can come and work in the cellar, and you know, I'll show what I do and how we work the vineyards. And they, what? White people in the vineyard? No. The guys that actually work the vineyards, they're Black, right? I said, no, in Switzerland and many other places in the world, they're actually white people. No, they could not even grasp the fact that white people will do the work that they were doing in other countries. And it really made me think of the importance of the real force, not the guy like me that appears on camera, but the people that really do the work. Because my job today, I go and I instruct to do certain things, to do certain, you know, to do certain pruning, to trim this, to edge that, to lower the yields there, to ferment that. But the people that truly do the job, do the work, are the people that are truly ultimately the heroes of wine. And just like in society today with this virus, you know, the healthcare system, nurses, doctors, public transportation, supermarkets, all the people that are putting their lives on the line for others, for society to keep on going, are the real heroes. Well, in wine, the real heroes are the ones that are actually doing the real job, the physical job. Because trust me, even harvesting up and down hills that are extremely steep, running to dump the grapes so they can go back the fastest way to the winery in order not to hurt their integrity. These people physically work like absolutely crazy. And these are things that a lot of people don't realize is actually, I'm sorry to say, but I think in Napa, the great thing about Napa are actually the workers. It's actually the workforce. And at AXR, we have a bunch. We have Devin, we have Sonia, we have Cooksey, we have all of these guys on the winery side, and then there's all the guys in the production side that puts exactly as much effort, as many hours, as much devotion. And I think that's something I really wanted to mention, because it's something that is really special, the sense of community and the sense of bonding behind something, behind what I call an art. Why is an art? I'm going to tell you a really, really interesting story. When I was 16 or 17, I went to Madrid. And I went to Madrid with a friend of mine, Aurélien, childhood friend. And of course, we were 16, 17, visiting my cousin who was there for studying exchange. We got high as a kite. All day long, we smoked weed because it was our time of life to do that. And we would party, and I would remember sitting on a balcony watching, it's called, there's a monument or a tower in Madrid called La Torre de Picasso, and we would like get so high and wait for it to turn on its light at night and just be completely high, whatever. We partied for an entire weekend in Madrid. And right before taking the plane, we realized, we have not visited the Prado. The Prado, probably one of the greatest, most beautiful museums on the face of the planet. I could not see myself going back to my parents because I would have gotten shot in the head and tell them, oh, I did not visit the Prado. So we really had a lack of time. And we decided we're gonna visit the Prado running. And so we decided to actually run through the museum. And that's where it comes to the point of wine and art. But I can promise you that every single time we would pass an art piece that really struck us, that created an emotion, we would stop and take a moment to see it. And that is art, because art is the expression of an emotion, just like wine. Wine is exactly the same thing. Wine is there, you can like it or not. There's raters, there's journalists, there's peers, there's consumers that can tell you if they like it or don't. The only person that can actually ultimately taste a wine is yourself. And that emotion is fairly simple. It's an emotion that is really truly personal to you and nobody else. That emotion can be tweaked or modified by your surrounding, by the moment, by the people, by your personal taste, your moods, everything that you want. But that emotion is what we try to do as winemakers, as hospitality people. We try to convey that emotion. But the only people that can actually truly feel it is actually you, nobody else. And I think that's something that is really, really important to realize, because it's for me something that made me fall in love with what I do and understand that criticism is a really big part of what I do, and I need to accept it and embrace it as a proof of confidence, because when people taste the wine that I make and don't particularly like it or find faults, it is my job to listen, to hear the faults, to hear the criticism, to hear the comments, so I can ultimately progress. And it's really very humbling, and it's really cool. You need to be sometimes a little well in your shoes. Don't worry, I don't smoke weed anymore, so I focus on wine, and that was when I was 16 and not so much anymore, thank God. So the first one that we're gonna talk about, Kelly, you have something to add, or whoever, Don, Mark, Sonia, Devin, feel free to chime in and comment, please. Kelly, you're speechless. That's a first. Oh, I muted you. That's why you're speechless. Thank God. But you're still as pretty. Cooksy.
Yes.
Give me something.
Well, I want to know what emotion, when you say wine's an emotion, like, is it love? Is it anger? What's emotion?
But that's a really good question, my friend. And really seriously, it is exactly this that I'm trying to define. Here's why. When you pick up a wine, and people are very intimidated a lot of time about wine. They're like, what can I say? What can I tell? Oh my gosh, I'm tasting in front of connoisseur. Oh my gosh, I have Jean for dinner. What wine am I going to serve? Am I going to say stupid comment? Well, all it is actually relating to the wine like you relate to people and to life. What do I mean by that? You can taste the wine, smell it, and not smell anything. But wine is like people. It goes, especially like Chelsea, it goes through moods. It's sometimes it's open and expressive and powerful and vibrant. Sometimes it's closed and cranky and tired. Wines is exactly like food. So you have to trust that your palate, your nose in that case, expresses that. And the impression that a wine gives to you on your nose and on your palate is just a mood of the wine, a stage of the wine. Sometimes the wine are like people, right? They vary, they change. And sometimes the wine are closed. I'll give you a very simple example to understand that. After bottling, when you change the wine, you transfer the wine from barrel tank and then into the bottle, it changes environment. And then the wine kind of contracts itself and kind of is shaken because it was transported, it's in a new environment. It's called bottle shock. Well, at that time, the wine is in a stage of really kind of protecting itself and is not as expressive. And so if you take a wine and you don't smell it, you're not wrong. The wine is just not expressing anything to you. But it's an emotion. You can taste the wine and feel, oh, that wine's cranky. Why? Because that wine could be, expressive, pushy. It could be angular. It could be, astringent. It could be too powerful. Or the wine could be extremely smooth, extremely round, extremely voluptuous, extremely sexy, extremely appealing. That's exactly like humans. I think you have to see wine like that. And that's why nobody should ever be scared to discuss or talk about a wine, because ultimately it's really an intimate relationship between the wine and the drinker and nothing else. I need to mention that my friend Jojo has instructed me really, really heavily to talk a little bit about Sauvignon Blanc for 2 seconds, or she told me that I would never be able to talk to her daughter again, so I have to, and that's a special message for Jojo. The Sauvignon Blanc 19 from AXR is actually partly stainless steel and partly barrel fermented, and I think in 19 is really, really very expressive. We use a vineyard down in Oak Knoll, actually, mainly for that, with a hint of Calistoga, but mostly down on a vineyard that's called Ryan, and that is extremely expressive, and we leave it on lees to be able to kind of gain a little bit of density on that really zingy, fresh, extremely aromatic profile. So Jojo, I did my job. I know you enjoy that Sauvignon Blanc because I think you drink about 15 bottles per day. So thank you for your support. You and your daughter and the family are talking about a couple of intervention because of the amount of Sauvignon Blanc you drink per day, but thank you for that.
Hey, John?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about why you use open barrel fermentation and cold soak fermentation and what the outcome is of that in your wine?
Absolutely. You're a genius. I was about to go to that, dear.
You cannot comment if he's wearing a Yankees hat. We just got to get that clear, right?
Oh, thank God. Dave,
I noticed that, Kelly. No Yankees hat on that kind of a question. Go ahead.
Oh, man, I agree. It's either Giants or Red Sox. I agree. I agree. So could you take that hat off, Kelly, or I will not talk about what you want to talk about.
There's no Major League Baseball right now, please.
There's no flying in baseball, okay?
There's no sports. That's why wine is so interesting these days. Even more than usual. So the 2016 blend, proprietary, is actually a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and a hint of Malbec, 69, 19, and the rest of Malbec. And why is it interesting? Because each variety brings a certain profile, brings a certain attitude to a blend. And so you have a tendency of blending varietals to fill up the gap, right? And we all know that Kelly is married to somebody that is way out of his league, that is way above his grade. And so we understand that in that marriage, well, Tiffany is 95% of the equation. And then there's just the little spiciness of the funny hat looking guy that is Kelly, right? Well, in wine, it's exactly the same thing, right? It's exactly the same thought process. Is you want to always balance the different varietals that you use to bring them in. But there's also other things you balance. There's things that are, as Kelly was mentioning, the type of fermentation. Like we have 69% of cab in this wine. Well, within that 69% of cab, we do some fermentation in stainless steel, so in tanks, which is a little bit more reductive. That means it's less in contact with air. And then I invented, back in 2001, and I saw the CEO of Newton is watching, so I better say really nice thing about him. In 2001 or 2002 up at Newton, I started using barrel fermentation. Well, what it is, it's actually popping the head of a barrel, right, the bottom of a barrel, and using a 60-gallon barrel as a mini tank. And why did I do that? Because it integrates wood, but most important, because of something that it's kind of a barbaric name, and I won't get too much into the geeky detail, but because of polymerization. And what is that? It is actually the combination of the color component. They're called anthocyanin. So the anthocyanin with tannins, which are that drying impression in an air environment, right? In contact with more air, because the barrel is porous, because the opening of the barrel is larger, it actually brings more air to the ferment. And the air actually uses and serves as a binder. So it takes these color components and it takes these tannins and bind them together to create molecules that are more stable, but also silkier in your mouthfeel. So they're earlier drinking wines, but they can age exactly as well. And so that barrel fermentation, we started with 2 barrels in 2001. And I think last year I did over 1,300 barrels, all wines combined of that. And so in that proprietary, we have both to bring a little bit of more complexity and to bring a little bit more of all these different aspects and fill up the gaps of the wine, the same way that we fill up the gaps by adding different varietal, like the very masculine Cabernet Sauvignon, the kind of crazy teenage Cab Franc, and excuse my French, but the sexy, slutty Malbec, because that's what it is. So in this case, and we'll talk, because we're going to talk next about Malbec. So I think it's a fairly good transition to the second wine. But is there any question? Is there any comments on that proprietary, or comments about anything in winemaking you want to talk about?
Yes, John, I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So the first time we met you was at Alpha Omega.
Yes.
And one of our favorite wines in there was the proprietary red. How would you compare this wine, this proprietary red, to the Alpha Omega proprietary red that you used to make?
Well, great question. First, it's different vineyards, so the DNA of the wine will be completely different. The way I make wine for AO and for AXR is very different, but the site different is huge, right? We don't have the same sites on these 2 wines. We do Cabernet base, it's Napa as well. But Napa, you have to realize, have more than 120 soils variation within the valley, right? Mm-hmm. Within a small piece, you have extreme diversity of soils. And so if you add to the soil diversity, the clone diversity, the exposition diversity, and the winemaking, it makes 2 very different wines. The other thing that is completely different, I've never used Malbec in the proprietary wine at Alpha Omega. I use Malbec at AO is on Era 2017, I think. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken. This is the first time I used that Malbec, because in 17 we needed a little bit of sexiness on top of the stronger tannins. But here it's 16, so it's a little bit colder vintages. It was already the drought years, and I think that it's really important to understand that when you have a drought year, your grapes ripen faster, and you have to and earlier. So you have to sometimes extend the hanging time of the fruit to allow the aromas to ripen, because usually the sugar ripen really fast. Then you have to wait, especially in early drought years like that. The sugar ripen really fast, and then you have to wait for all the tannins and aromas to ripen. But 2016 didn't have as much big heat spell, so you could actually do that without hurting, the grape's integrity and ultimately the wine. So I think that was kind of a special thing, a special aspect of that vintage for me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Pleasure. Any other question?
I have a question, John.
Yes.
So since we're all like in quarantine right now and doing a lot of cooking, you were talking about the polymerization in the barrel and like the long chains. How would you kind of compare that with something in cooking? Is there a comparison that you could say, like maybe cooking a sauce all day long or whatever? Or?
You're exactly right. So it's a great analogy, and there's two analogies within that, Shay. The first one is the way we actually analyze polymerization today in wine is actually by using certain components, certain chemicals, and seeing how they react to human saliva. So the recomposition, the enzymatic recomposition of the saliva. And that's how we actually express polymerization and quantify polymerization. So it's kind of interesting to say, Shape, that it comes back to actually humans tasting and drinking the wine. So as far as applying the same thing, I will say it is like caramelizing something, a pot-au-feu or a ratatouille or something, mijoter in French you say, so simmering for a very, very long time, where all the components are going to kind of blend in and bind to create a little bit more roundness, a little bit more fatness. You can do that in ratatouille, for example, or in tomato sauce. You do that with sugar. You could do that with carrots because of the sugar of carrots. You can do that. Sometimes celery has that kind of same profile. But this is what I would compare to as far as cooking into that polymerization of chains. You know, it's really giving, I think, a textural note in addition to the consistency and aromas, pretty much. My pleasure. Any other question?
Jean?
Yes, sir.
Favorite buddy. I have two things. One is you and I tasted sushi once, and you thought Cab Sav went great with sushi.
So first, let me, I mean, this is Mark Schratz, okay? This is the guy that doesn't know how to say cheers in Japanese and says, Campagna! Yeah, and now he takes an accent from Australia and says, do you want to taste the bloody Cab Sav? No, sir. It's called Cabernet Sauvignon. And in English, if I remember correctly, at least in our country, it's called Cabernet Sauvignon. So the Cab Sav is down under, and we're not down under, so I will refuse that question.
All right, I have a comment for you then.
Yes.
I noticed on this call we have Ryan Avila, who is a new AXR employee, and I noticed he's wearing a tie and a shirt, which means, unlike you and Kelly, he probably showered today. So just shout out to Ryan.
Ryan, thank you so much. You look really good, and since I'm a Zoom time with you on Monday, please don't wear a tie because I'd make fun of you until the rest of your life. So.
Well, you should see what I have from the waist down. You'd be proud of me.
Oh, trust me, you don't want to see what I have down there. But Mark, another reason why you're completely wrong, I actually showered right before that because I broke the law today. And all tennis courts in Marin are actually closed, but I have a key to a private court that I decided to break the law and still go play tennis. So it felt really good, and I showered right before that. So you are wrong, my friend. So sushi and cab, it's a good question. I think it really depends on what you eat as far as sushi and how and what it comes with, right? Fish, especially fatty fish, can work well with tannins, right? It can actually, but you need to make sure that you have a certain amount of acidity and pretty polished tannins. You don't want the fish to be too fresh, too fishy. You want usually a fatty tuna or stuff like that will kind of blend well with usually for me older cabs and not as young as powerful cab. And that's what I would say. I've ever been on a wine tasting discussion that includes showering. Well, yeah, I know. It's weird, but that's Mark. It's all right. I traveled when on vacation with him. The guy is weird. But that's another example where the wife is about up there and he's all the way down there. So that's well, it's okay. Any other question on that first proprietary winemaking before we go to the Malbec?
Hey, is that a raccoon on Dave Granhoff's head?
I'm supporting John. You just got to know that when I
Thank
saw
you.
Kelly's hat,
Dave,
what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I have no choice.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Boston.
John.
That's the feeling. And for those of you who don't know, my mom's from Boston, so, and my grandparents were from Boston, Wellesley, exactly. So that's why the Boston Red Sox. What, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Big AO and AXR fan, but rookie on winemaking. So could you please explain how you come up with the composition of the blend? I notice it's 69% Cabernet Sauvignon.
Nice, much better than Mark.
If you could just briefly explain where you start. Do you start with that percentage and decide what to add?
No. So that's a great question. It's the polar opposite. I am of the school of thought that is you have to maximize what is given to you in any given year. And what do I mean by that? That means that I sit down and for AXR it's 89 different lots, if I remember, in 2019. So I sit down with pretty much 89 different wines. And I sit down and say, okay, today we're going to blend, meaning we're going to mix these wines, right? In this case, the proprietary. And so I go and without paying even attention, when I do blends that are across valley to where the vineyard come, because if the grapes that come from your backyard taste better than the most expensive, for that wine, ultimately the only thing that matters is the end goal, right? It's actually the quality of the wine. So I go and I taste through, these 89 wines, 90 wines, 100 wines, depending, and I take notes. And a lot of people think I actually take notes on aromatics, right? Oh, this smells like fresh cut wild strawberries of Vermont. No, it does not, and I don't care at that time. Actually, at that time, I solely focus on the structure of the wine and on the things that won't change. Aromas evolve and change all the time. Structure and acidity and tannin, texture, voluptuousness, how voluptuous the wine is. All these are more stable factors that actually come in much more into the equation. And then I take my notes and I say, okay, this lot has density and strength and power. So I'm going to blend it with a lot that has elegance, silk, and something like that. And then I do a first blend, mixing these at the proportion that I think they belong. And then I taste the wine and I say, okay, we're missing something. We're missing a little bit of elegance. We're missing a little bit of lushness. And I find in my notes a lot that has more lushness, and I blend 0.25% to 3.5-20%. The least that I do is a 0.25% blend because already there at a 0.25% it dramatically changes the wine, and the most is 90, 95, 100% sometimes. And so I start and I blend the wine like that. And when I'm done with the base of Cabernet Sauvignon, 69% on this particular blend, I see in other varietal what could really help that wine. And so in this case, the Cabernet Sauvignon is the structure, the frame. The Cabernet Franc is the soul. It's what lifts a little bit the Cabernet Sauvignon. And the Malbec is kind of the makeup, right? It's that fruity, sexy aspect that you put. It's kind of the voluptuous kind of fruity, sexy final touch that you put to brighten the blend. And that's how you actually make a blend. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you answered her question. I thought that was a great answer.
Thank you. The next wine is actually Malbec, and Malbec 2018. So, all right, can I be a little bit un-PC for a change? Let's be honest. Malbec is one of the beautiful varietal, most amazing varietal to play with if well done. Malbec was one of the original Bordeaux varietal. It disappeared from the face of the planet in Bordeaux because it shatters. What does that mean? It means that the vine creates a flower, and that flower is self-pollinated and turns into a fruit. But during that flowering phase, if you have rain, wind, heat, a lot of different conditions, the flower fecundation doesn't happen, and it ends up being a partial berry or a non-formed berry or no berry at all. And that's called a process that is called shatter. So it dramatically lowers your yields. And in Bordeaux, because conditions are much less stable than in Napa. That's why in Napa you can be so proactive, and in Bordeaux you're very often reactive. Because of that, I think Malbec sometimes can have dramatical yield change. And so Bordeaux kind of moved away from Malbec. It became South America quite a bit. Argentina, of course, makes great Malbec, because even in Napa, you have years where the Malbec, instead of producing 2.5, 3.5, 4 tons to an acre, has a quarter ton. And trust me, when Mark, Mike, Don, Dave, whoever sees your financials and sees that Malbec goes at a price because you've still farmed it for the same price, but you have, a fifth of what you're supposed to have as in terms of grapes, and therefore in terms of wine, it's a really, really big problem. But we understand things a little bit better. There's certain clones of Malbec that have a little bit better fruit set, we call it, a better fruit set. That transformation from flower to berry happens a little bit better. And therefore, Malbec has an increasingly big following. The other reason in Napa, I think, why Malbec is getting more popular, I think people are getting a little bit tired or got tired with a lot of too sweet, too lush, too vulgar type of red. And Malbec can really be fruity, but it's vulgar. You guys, we used to drink a lot of Malbec, now more Cab, still like Malbec. Yeah, I mean, in this particular wine, I actually added 20% of Cab. And here's why. Malbec can be extremely fruity, extremely sexy, extremely lush, extremely forward in your face. But sometimes, just like mankind, just like people, you need to compensate their faults, right? And so with Malbec, for me, sometimes it lacks a little bit of structure, right? Of something holding it together. And so that's why I actually ended up putting a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon into that Malbec. That Malbec comes from Carneros, actually from a vineyard called Mackenzie Mueller down in Carneros. That gave that Malbec a little bit more freshness. And I think that spine of acidity maintains that wine really well together and helps the wine being the fruit being a little bit more lifted, not as heavy. And then you have the frame of Cabernet Sauvignon that holds the wine all together. So I think it's actually really kind of cool. I didn't think of Malbec in a little bit colder region, but Malbec is also an earlier ripening varietal. So in Carneros, it still ripens before the rain, before you have any weather pattern issue. And I think because of that, it's actually pretty amazing. Any questions? Do you use French barrels for all your wines? That's a good question. First, most of you know I make fun of the French. France is one of the most beautiful countries in the world, but it's fairly, no, just kidding. I just see Laurence, who's the head of the French-American Chamber of Commerce is listening. So I just thought I would, a little bit and say hi. But the reason why we actually use French oak on most
once we're done with this, I'll restart it.
Is because The French oak has a tighter grain and leaves less oxygen when you do a longer aging. So the only varietals where I usually put some American oak are usually Syrahs or Petite Syrah, because Petite Syrah in that case has so much tannins. It's such a thick wine that American oak, big expression, power expression of wood helps. But on Bordeaux varietal, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and all these, the French tighter grain is much more important in order to integrate the wood, to integrate the barrel, and not to overpower it.
Campagna.
The Campagna. All right. I hope you enjoy that wine. I do. But I can't drink all day because I still have to work sometimes. The last but not least in this decanter, and I had a funny text from our friend Howard, who was telling me, oh, I'm going to open a 2018 AXR flagship. I'm like, I don't think so. It's not in the bottle. But here it is. So I have the pleasure of actually having that wine in front of me, Howard. You might have the 17 and 16 and 15 in your cellars. And thank you for your support and your help. Thank you for being a good partner to us. The last one is actually the 2018 flagship. We still haven't found a name. My dear better half is running against the clock because I think I said I would quit, the winery and making wine by the end of the year if nobody comes up with a smart name for that flagship. Because a bunch of journalists and readers actually asked me a bunch of different times when they were writing about that wine, what's the name? And so I think it'd be a good thing when we'll find a name. So feel free to submit your names and send them to Devin
at
valleywinery.com. What?
Can you see Nikki Bernardi's hat? It looks really cool.
Where? Hold on, I got to expand because there's so many of you on the thing. So I'll have to.
All in Nikki Bernardi.
It's Yankees hat.
Oh, Al, thank you. Thanks.
We need another Red Sox fan. Who's got another Red Sox hat? If you could
I'm on it.
That would be awesome. Thank you. Just want to.
Thank you. Yeah, come on.
Thank you.
And I had pulled out one of the flagships so you guys can see what it looks like, finished product.
And honestly, so I have to say something about the flagship. And Devin, hold on, because I'm gonna kind of keep it there so everybody can see it. It's absolutely one of the sexiest, best design I've seen over the last 20 years in this valley. So there we go. We have another Boston. Oh. Let me wrap myself in a blanket that actually was given to me by Mr. Kelly. So Kelly, you see, revenge is a bitch. Excuse my French.
All right. Well, hey, make sure that you let people know that not only was it the most beautiful, sexy label, it actually won the gold medal for luxury packaged wine design in Napa Valley. So
yeah, I'm not a guy that yes, sir. Yes, it is actually a really, really well made design made by our wonderful team. And honestly, with Mia and Chels and everybody chiming in. And so again, it's a big success, but the wine that is inside hopefully is not too bad either. Because I think, honestly, the most important thing I see as a winery business, and I really measure my word, is actually the consistency of philosophy, message, and quality between the brand, the packaging, and the product. And I think we succeeded extremely well. And I have other examples. Honestly, the Era bottle from Alpha Omega is one of these big success. The AOX bottle of Alpha Omega is a really good success too. For me, because it's consistent and it really shows solid thing. That new AXR flagship for me is just so different than anything that has been made. It is so powerful that it sweats trophy bottle. And you know that a lot of people buy wine at even higher price than that to have a trophy wine, a wine that nobody has. And I told my good old friend a few years ago in Napa, said, the guy that makes the wine the most expensive will automatically gain traction. And the guy actually came out with I think a mag a couple of months ago at a couple of $1,000, sold it out in 24 hours. So that trophy bottle philosophy works, and that packaging at a lower price, more accessible, because I think that's more who we are, is really, really extremely sexy. So that flagship is what? Well, 2018 first, I think, will be probably one of the greatest 10 vintages of Napa when I pass away. So hopefully not too early, but at the end of my life, I think we'll see 2018 as being one of the greatest vintage of Napa. Why? Because we had very, very ripening season with no heat spell and no rain. And therefore, it really allowed everybody to pick exactly when they wanted, with a protected acidity in the wines. And you could really extract and push the wines into whatever direction you wanted. And instead of having often, sometimes in 13, people had too much lushness, too much power, too much extraction. In 18, you really have extraction, concentration, elegance, and freshness. And so it's a really, really solid vintage, honestly. And of course, in this particular wine, we mix. And to answer again that question of the wine itself and the blending part, I sit down and I take the best barrels, the best lots and the best barrel of our certain single vineyards, and I make sure that they kind of merge together well. Let me explain something. It is not always two greatest that makes the best end result, right? The best wines are often finding how different and how complementary the two lots, the two barrels can be. So in this wine, of course, we have Sleeping Lady, which is elegance and balance. We have Tocolon, which is layers and depth and structure. We have Vimedron, that is acidity, herbal, terroir driven. We have Denali, that is pure sexiness. And we have Artelade, that is that volcanic powerhouse, that really big, strong structure site. And by modifying a little bit the percentages of all these different these different sites, because it's 100% CAM, by changing the expression, right, you end up having a wine that is extremely complete. And I think that blend is very complete. It's not so much an expression of one terroir, it's really something a little bit different. What is the drinking window for 16 and 17 flagship? I will not be part of this world when I would like to taste these and drink these wines. Let's put it this way. And I'll explain. I think it's a mood. So again, you want something fruitier with a big barbecue, you can have that. But today, you saw for my birthday, it was 1973. For Chelsea's Sunday, it was 1984. I really think that wine, like human, gain in depth of soul with age. For me, the peak of a wine is really when you have the widest range of aromas and the wine is the most complex. But 17, 18, 16, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years. And I am willing to sit with you if I'm still alive by then. And if you don't like that wine, I will exchange the bottle for a younger wine, because I can guarantee you, if you consider that the three factors of ageability of a wine are acidity, we have it, that are tannins, polymerization, we have it, and we have twice as much as Bordeaux, and of course, alcohol. These are three factors that are completely a full presence, a full identity, a full DNA of these wines. So these wines will age for decades to go. When you aren't drinking AXR or AO, well, I don't drink AXR and AO, believe it or not, at least not at the early stage. Why? Because you never want to I think, read a book that you wrote. And by the time the wine is in the bottle, I tasted it 100 times. So I wait for aging to change the profile of the wine. Because young, I know it. When it comes into the bottle, I've tasted that wine 100 times. So I want something a little bit different. I want a little bit, I want to learn from others as well. I want to reset my palate to things I don't make. So it's everything from Bordeaux to Switzerland to Spain, Italy, name it, Pinots, any varietal, and anything that I don't, because again, I like reading or watching a movie that I have not made, and it's much more interesting. Bruce, I love the question. I feel like Jean would like an older vintage, whatever it is. Yeah, it's very a good question, good way to answer it, Evan. Older vintage, I'm an aging freak, because you remember, I will kind of say, Bordeaux used to have to wait into the bottle to open up, because Bordeaux back in the day, 60s, 70s, 50s, 40s, we did not have the ripeness that we have today. And we did not understand ripening tannins as we did. So we had to wait in the bottle for the tannins to oxidize, to be attacked by air through the cork, through the bubble of the wine there, to kind of soften the wine and let the wine open itself. Napa is the polar opposite. Napa comes out of the gate, expressive, big, bold, sexy. And I think with time, it kind of tones it down and brings to the beauty a little bit of intellectual. Any other questions or comments?
I have another question.
Yes.
And it not made by AXR, but because of your Swiss background, the only wine tasting I've done in Switzerland was Chasselas. Could you spend 1 minute on why we don't have it here? My impression as a very rudimentary palate is not quite complex, but I would love your thoughts on why we don't have Chasselas here.
Well, first, next time you're in the Valley, we go to lunch and I'll bring you Chasselas from Switzerland, because I have some in my cellar, because it's one of the white wine that I love the most. So next time you go up to AXR, make sure that you send the team a note. I'll take you to lunch and I'll bring a Chasselas bottle. And second, to answer your question, because the price of land in Switzerland is so high, you have to understand 67% of Switzerland is mountain. So therefore, something like that, 60%. So therefore, the rest of the country is very expensive. The real estate is very expensive. So the cost of production of Chasselas is very expensive to start with. But in addition to that, the production cost of these wines, Switzerland consumes 100% of its own production. And so they never saw the importance, now a little bit more, to export their wine. They just kept it for themselves. And Chasselas is not simple. And Switzerland used to produce a large amount of Chasselas. Now they reduced it and they make it also much better. It's actually a very subtle wine. It's actually, I think, a very intellectual wine. And honestly, it's one of my favorite whites because it rings the emotion bell without a doubt. But I have Chasselas on a regular basis, and it's also a great reset for acidity, because Chasselas is extremely fresh and extremely acid. So it really resets my palate to make sure that when I make wines here and wherever in Washington State, down south, that my palate is resetted to a bracket of acidity that is a little bit more healthy.
You make wine in Washington State?
I do.
We live in Olympia, so if you'd like to grow Chasselas here and make it for us, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, I started working with Columbia Crest in consulting for Columbia Crest. So with my good friend Katie Nelson and Juan and all these guys up there. So it's actually fun and a great place to be and a great place to grow grapes. And it'd be a fairly better climate actually for Chasselas than down in Napa, that's for sure.
We'd all like you to take us to lunch and bring some of that. That'd be great.
Okay, deal. We can start a new program. We can start a new program, and I'll let Devin email all of you with the program that if you give us advance notice, I'll come to lunch with you every time. Deal. So I have to eat lunch. I love meeting and spending time with people. So if you give enough notice for your visit, I will make sure that I carve a lunch and come sit with you at the winery at Brasswood or any other restaurant of the Valley and learn about you, because I heard from a collector, because I only have two brain cells, a really interesting saying: curiosity is a great sign of intelligence. And I think I'm not very smart, but I'm very curious. So can I say something before you sign off today?
Hold on,
Yeah.
let that deal exclude Yankee fans.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't want to eat with Kelly anyways. Kelly, go ahead. The stage is yours, buddy.
Again, I just want to thank everybody for the huge support they've given us. We're all just blown away by the love and the attention and time that you guys have spent to be involved with what we're doing. We're so excited to again share everything with you guys once this is over. And a dear friend of mine who writes for the New York Times sent me something, Carl Richards, the other day, which I would love to leave you with, and hopefully you can see it, but it might be backwards actually, huh? It actually says, "Things helped by worry." And down below it says, "It's blank." So all of us just need to realize that we just need to take one day at a time, and we're blessed to have each other. We're blessed to have an amazing life, even in the midst of all this chaos. And it's allowed us to do something that is actually our tagline, which is to enjoy the moments that truly matter with those who matter most. And this shelter in place has allowed us to realize what's important, allow us to spend time with the people we love most. And there's a blessing, there's a silver lining in everything. So we're just really thankful to have you all part of the AXR family.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And also, I want to make sure that Devin, you want to talk a little bit about what you guys can do for people if they get bored during the day, and your great programs and that great creativity that you guys came up with. I think that'd be kind of useful for people that haven't heard about it.
I like to be the behind the scenes girl and not be the one talking. Richie's the talker, but we have these really wonderful virtual tastings that our whole team is doing daily. And you can buy the kits on our website, very easy to find. And we can really curtail it to however you want to do it. But just email us, call us, we'll get wine to you, and we can have a good time just like this right here. Invite your friends, invite your family. Team building exercise. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Devin. Maybe this would be a neat idea. I'm just coming up with it. We all have different businesses that we're in. We all have different people we associate with. I'm thinking about, is it possible for us to arrange with you a virtual tasting like this for a group of 20 people or so, of people either we work with or we know? Maybe we could put something like this together. We could work in advance to get everyone to order the wine, get it to their house, and do something. And if Jean, if you could participate, it would be amazing. But I'll try to pull together 20 people.
No, absolutely. And this is really where our team, this is their wheelhouse. This is what they've been doing the last, really since we went under the shelter in place order. We've been kind of trying to figure out Richie, all of us can see your floor.
It's fairly typical of Richie.
But yeah, what we're doing is we're setting up large tastings like that. We've actually got a few going back east to some of our people back there, and they're going to be doing 20 to 30 people in the Midwest as well. So it's you can tailor it to however you want it, and we can have as many people as you'd like to.
Awesome. I'll send you an email. We'll try to set something up. That'll be
awesome. Awesome.
Hey, Richard, Cooksey.
Richie, you do look amazing there. I have to tell you, you're a good-looking dude, man. You just.
I want you to know my new name is Lord Richie. You all address me as Lord Richie moving forward.
Lord of the living room.
Well, that's my court jester, Napoleonic Ryan.
No, Richie, you got to sing happy birthday for Sonia before we're done, because that's part of your lot in life.
Yeah, that's for sure. We got to sing happy birthday to So. That no.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, she's an amazing soul for sure. And tomorrow I'll be doing Alpha Omega, but at 5:30. And you guys all, thank you so much for joining us and for being so helpful and so supportive. So I mean, Cooksey, the stage is yours. You sing a cappella alone. Happy birthday for Sonia. Thank you.
I'll sing with you, Richie.
I'll sing with you, Richie.
I always tell Sonia to take it easy on Mateo because she's beating the crap out of him. But I want you to know. Okay, you guys ready? Here we go.
We're all ready.
Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
birthday, dear Sonia.
Happy birthday to you.
Yum, yum, yum.
Love you. Love you, Sonia.
Oh my.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers, everybody.
We love you all.
Cheers.
Oh, that's a jar. That's a jar of jam from Bonne Maman for a wine glass. Nice.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Love you guys. Thank you.
Just want to hang out and drink.
Thank you.
Hang out on Zoom, Devin.
Everybody.
See you last.